Hi, I'm Jordan Stone with A Good Ride, and is there really a better sensation than dragging your hand across the slope? Let me know in the comments. Today I have got Nitro's Karma snowboard. Been in the line now for a few years. I've actually had a chance to ride this quite a bit, so I'm excited to let you guys know what I think of it. Pros on this. It has a similar personality as a hard carving board, but it's playful in its torsional flex. It doesn't feel like a plank that most carving specific boards feel like. It's super fun turning experience, especially at higher speeds. And it feels super stable underneath your foot. Now the negatives of it lacks a little bit of snappiness during turns and ollies, especially when compared to something like the alternator. It does not have great edge hold, especially during icy conditions. And it can take over the rider if it's not sized correctly, or if you're fatigued or ill-prepared for the camber and stiffness of this board. Here at The Good Ride, we get all of our boards from the distributors, but we are not paid to review these. These are honest, subjective reviews from normal, average people. However, our sponsor allows us to continue to give these reviews to you. Check them out. This is all made possible by our sponsors, thanks to Blower out of Big Bear. Blower has been around selling snowboards almost as long as I've been on this planet. So I really appreciate any company that is going to be core, true to the bone when it comes to snowboarding. They have been supporting snowboarders longer than most resorts have been supporting snowboarders, so they are a great fit for us. So please go out there, support them. They have a wonderful online shop and in-store brick and mortar shop. I've had the opportunity to get on the Karma on multiple days throughout the season. Conditions have varied between soft groomed, light powder, to mid to late spring conditions with slush, freeze thaw, groomed, and ice. I ride a reference stance of 19.5, which is actually that reference stance on here, and both directional, positive 18, negative 6 stance, and I've also tried this with a carving stance of a positive 21, positive 3, so a little posy action here. It was ridden as a standalone board in a 148 and a 152 early season, and it was ridden in sequence with the other Nitro boards, the Alternator and the Victoria, on spring conditions in a 149. The Karma comes in only 3 sizes, a 144, a 148, and a 152. I rode a 148 as well as a 152, but really landed with the 148. That's designed for a weight range between 99 and 140 pounds. That 152 is really designed for 140 and higher, and has a slightly wider waist width. The waist width of the 148 here is a 24.3. It's significant, but it really accommodates a women's size 7. Now this is the female version of the men's banker. If you're someone or a woman that is a little bit bigger, heavier weight, or have a larger foot, consider the 156 banker. This has a waist width of 25.3 and designed for a weight range of only 110 up, so you could accommodate your foot size a little bit better. The women's Karma is a directional free ride shape. This has 4 millimeters of taper from the nose to the tail and has a setback stance of about 15 millimeters. At reference, this gives you about 1.87 inches of extra nose, almost 2 inches of extra nose at reference. The Karma has a true camber profile, and really, if you take a look at this, much like the women's Alternator and the women's Victoria with their true camber, it does go all the way from tip to tail, and it's a significant amount of camber here. You can see that little bit of lift here. The board felt immediately stable on snow and when skating, but this was not as true with the larger size. The 148 was definitely the ideal size for me, as the 152 felt better at speeds but far more catchy on cat tracks or skating. Surprisingly, the Karma felt easier to flex compared to the Alternator, even though they are said to have the same flex. My riding on this board was less dictated by pumping through turns and really powering through turns, and more about opening up my body and letting that long, effective edge take over. This is not to say that the Karma does not have an aggressive tendencies. It very much does, but this board is all about the long drawn out motions. It has one of the longer running lengths out of the 3 boards that I tried. It has about a 1060 millimeter running length. This is 10 millimeters longer than the alternator and actually 40 millimeters longer than the Victoria in comparable sizing. Now, how does this board do in powder? It is a full camber. Cambers notoriously are not great in powder because of that super long effective edge. I did not get a chance to get this in deep snow, just some lighter snow, sort of patches of powder, and it seemed to do okay, considering that at reference you are getting about 2 inches of extra nose and you've got that mild taper, so it's gonna cantilever just a little bit. Now, if you set this all the way back to the furthest inserts, it's gonna widen your reference stance about 20 inches, but it's gonna give you about 2.75 inches of extra nose. I really don't consider that a powder board, but it's gonna do okay. If you're looking for a powder specific board, the key is a lot of nose and actually a shorter effective edge. If it's got camber, that camber should be more tail heavy. Now, unlike many board brands out there, Nitro does not use any form of edge disruption. They do a variety of side cut radiuses, such as the progressive side cut on this Karma, to help with edge initiation, but it does very little for edge hold. My experience across the Nitro lineup is that the edge hold is okay, but unpredictable and highly conditions dependent. It lacks the ability to really lock in when conditions are hard, icy, or inconsistent. I found myself on some pretty undesirable conditions where it was icy, but it was tracked out freeze conditions, and this board lost its edge. I ended up flipped around, sliding backwards, and that was a common theme on the icier conditions. This board's gonna do a lot better in smoother conditions. Let's talk about the flex on the women's Karma. This comes in at a 7 out of 10 flex. This puts it at a pretty aggressive board. It makes sense for its intention as a carving board, but what you'll see is that flex is still very much easy and pliable. Now with that directional shape, you're gonna see a little bit of a stiffer tail in this and a softer nose. That's gonna help kind of lift that nose, keep it from being catchy when you're carving. This does also have quite a bit of great pop to it. It does not have any kind of carbon stringers in there, so it's not super snappy in that pop, but it is going to still feel like it rebounds and doubles up your energy. Now, what is the Karma for? That's the big question. Carving. Carving is the name of the game for the Karma. It's got a progressive side cut. What that means is that the side cut is actually larger at a 7.2 at the nose, and then gets narrower to a 5.7, which is really like a freestyle quick side cut of 5.7 in the tail. That larger side cut in the front of the board transitioning to smaller towards the tail gives this board a lot of variety. It gives it less catchy feeling in the nose and is really meant for longer carving turns. You get to initiate that turn with a little bit of slack, and then when you get to the tail, it's gonna whip itself around. It's not as quick and playful as the alternator's dual digressive side cut, but boy is it easy to get on edge. Many times I found myself within arm's distance to the slope without even trying. Its stiff flex personality from tip to tail keeps this board driving downhill, where the softer torsional flex makes it easy to transition from heel side to toe side even at high speeds. It is capable of quicker arcing turns, but really shined for me with long fast turns or cross run carves. I did notice that the back foot heavy riding, or if you tend to be more back footed, did change the duration of the carve, and in some cases causes the board to wash, or for me to quickly how to come out of that edge hold. Centered or even front heavy is where this is really able to lay trenches. The board performed well when transitioning from groom to pack powder to track powder conditions. It has a level of dampness that gives the rider the confidence to maintain speeds through changing conditions. I really enjoyed the fast nature of the Karma. Its long, stiff profile and its ability to get on edge quickly and efficiently gave me all the security I needed to tuck into a straight line. This is one of those boards that allows you to go faster than you have ever gone without feeling like you're going faster than you've ever gone. Just in case it isn't fast enough, taking the stance to a posi ramps up the control on the board and puts your weight more forward. I got it on sort of mild blue runs in a posi conditions, and it was just a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed this board. Posi, smooth groomed, carving, just leaning into it, trying to get my elbow down, trying to get my armpit down. It was great. The Karma comes equipped with sintered EcoSpeed HD bass. This is different than the Alternator and the Victoria. This is actually my favorite bass out of the lineup. It required minimal tuning and waxing right out of the gate to keep it fast, even in changing conditions. Whereas my Alternator felt sticky on snow with multiple condition-specific waxes over the duration of the week, the Karma felt smooth and fast right out of the gate. A coat of all-weather wax made this easily the fastest board I had reviewed from Nitro. This board felt surprisingly comfortable in switch. This could be because the camber is actually centered on the board. The mild taper of the tail felt insignificant, but the setback stance did make the tail feel shorter. I think this board can navigate a park okay. Do I think it's a park board? No. It does not have any kind of carbon inlays on this, so it doesn't have the same snappiness, that same sort of feeling underneath the foot as something as the Alternator, but it still performs pretty well when buttering, when popping off of edge, when popping off of base, especially in natural, like side hit settings, and in a jump park setting. Overall, the Nitro Karma board, the women's version of the Banker, is an absolutely wonderful carving experience. It is fast, it is stable, its progressive side cut really lends itself to going into a turn nice and smooth and snapping out of that when you come out of the turn. Now, it is a full tip-to-tail camber is harder to ride. It takes some skill, and it takes a little bit of practice to really feel comfortable with this. It also has a 7 out of 10 flex, which isn't the stiffest thing in the world, but can make that camber harder to manipulate and also make this board feel a little bit much under the foot, especially if you start to get lazier or you're not on right out of the gate. I really enjoy the Karma, and I think that it's a great option for those women out there that are looking for a quiver board that's going to be their sunny day, smooth groomed, hard charger, want to be at the front of the pack and want to really lay out those turns. Please support us by clicking the likes, commenting, and if you need advice, follow the link. I am happy to help in any way I possibly can.